Hey YouTube, thanks so much for joining me again for part three, the third and final part of the series for astrology's biggest mystery, Earth. So in this part, we're kind of going to wrap it up talking about the way our earthly experience can play into our psychology. So if you are familiar with like any type of psychology, like Psych 101 type concepts, then you're familiar with like Sigmund Freud. So he's somebody who basically, I mean, he has a lot of theories and stuff that are pretty popular. Some of them are challenged and stuff like that. But one widespread theory that he has about human psychology and behavior is this concept of the id, the ego, and the superego. All right, so that's basically a way of breaking down the human mind just based on different levels of self awareness that we kind of develop as we grow and mature and go through like our earthly experience. So the way that it's broken down, let's start with the id, okay? So the id is it's like this primitive instinctual part of us, okay? So that like animal instinct that we have where you have to make a decision and it's an impulse, something like that. That's like your id being triggered. And it's made up of the things that we kind of inherit from our parents, and just our life and death instincts, the things that basically keep us alive. So that urge to recreate through sex, aggression, uh pretty much to, I guess, protect yourself and your livelihood and stuff like that. Those are parts of the id, and the way that it works, it's pretty much, its only desire is really to seek pleasure and to avoid pain. Okay, so it's very childlike in that way. The id just, it wants what it wants, and it doesn't want anything unpleasant. And if that's why when you see little kids, they can just do impulsive things or make decisions that are just based on that instinctive, impulsive, get what I want kind of mentality, or avoid getting in trouble, avoid punishment type of mentality, just simply because they haven't really grown too far above that type of awareness yet. But we all, still, it's not something you grow out of, you still carry it with you. And so the id kind of relates to what I feel the moon represents in astrology. Because the moon is, a lot of times in astrology we're related to just, your emotions and your feelings and stuff like that. But the moon is also the secrets that we keep. It's our private thoughts. It's the private hidden part of our psyche. Okay, so it's not just emotion, but it's those hidden factors. And those subconscious elements that kind of drive our behavior that we may or may not be aware of. Okay. Um, and so, you know what I'm saying? When we think about the moon in that way, then it does kind of reflect the id. Those, like whatever your moon sign is, you know what I'm saying? That's going to be, it's kind of going to shed some light on where those impulses come from, or what drives you, or what gives you pleasure, or ways that you'll avoid pain. Like for example, my moon sign is Gemini, and that rules like communication, talking, people, things like that. And so for me, I enjoy talking and laughing and joking. I enjoy laughing, like, and just, comedy, things like that. So that's something that's a way that I will seek out pleasure and enjoyment just in a general sense, right? It's kind of like my go-to. Like I joke a lot, I laugh a lot, can be very sarcastic or, comedic, I guess. It's almost like I can't help but do it, but that's just a part of who I am. You know what I'm saying? It's like a hidden element within my overall makeup that will kind of present itself. Okay, and so then we also have the ego. So the ego is probably the one that we're all like most familiar with in society, because it's the one people probably talk about the most. And so the ego is basically the version of ourselves that we present to the world. Okay. The ego is basically, it acts as a mediator between our private and personal desires, our id, and the outside world. So it's how we learn how to satisfy the id. Okay, so the ego itself has no conscious. A lot of people would think like, okay, the ego is me, like it's yourself, but the ego is not yourself. You know what I'm saying? It's like a strategy. It's a way of presenting yourself in order to satisfy the id. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a part of you, but it's not all of you. Okay, because the ego doesn't have like a conscience. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't really have feelings or emotions. It's basically it's how we use logic and reason to satisfy the id. So like, for example, if you let me think, what's a good example for that? If you have like a desire to eat good gourmet food, right? Like, if that's just something that, maybe you're like a Taurus moon, or a Cancer moon, or a Pisces moon, and you like to indulge or something like that in good food, good drink, or something like that. It really like soothes you, it makes you happy, it brings you pleasure, right? So your ego could then be a strategy that says, okay, well, if I like gourmet food and these things like that, then I need to have money to spend on this stuff because it costs money. So I need to make X amount of money. So I need to get this kind of job in order to satisfy my inner desires. Now, I'm not saying you're going to consciously choose your career path and your life path based on that, but that inner desire is going to play a role in how you choose to present yourself in the world, and like the choices that you're going to make to kind of achieve those objectives. All right. So the ego, it pretty much relates to the sun. And that's like a widely accepted correlation in astrology. Because in astrology, the sun rules the sign of Leo. And Leo is that sign that is most most often noted for ego. And a lot of times it's in a negative way. You know what I'm saying? The way that it's talked about and stuff like that for Leo. But ego is something that we all pretty much have. It's just about kind of integrating that into the rest of the whole. So the sun represents how we present ourselves to others. And I guess how we kind of make sure our needs are met, and the strategies that we use to achieve our happiness. And the sun also sheds light on the moons, because the moon doesn't have its own light the way the sun does. And in that same kind of way, the ego sheds light on our inner desires. Okay. And so then the third portion of this would be the superego. All right. So the superego is basically a combination of the id, the ego, and then the expectations of society. And when I'm saying society, I mean like your family, your community, your culture, all of those values that you're taught, and all those expectations that are kind of set for you based on other human beings, right? So it's it's like all these different ideas of who you should be, that you're taught from the people around you, right? So the super ego is kind of like a level of awareness that kind of encompasses, okay, this is my inner desire, this is how I want to go achieve that, and then this is how it will affect the people around me and how they may perceive me in relation to that. Okay, so earthly life, like this experience of being on earth, being human, living in a human body, having this experience is really about kind of learning about ourselves through other people and experiences with other people, right? So a big part of that is learning to see through all these different lenses, because you have to recognize all three of these parts. Like, you have to recognize your inner desire, the driving force, like those subconscious things that are kind of triggering you, motivating you, pushing you to like do certain things, the ego, as well, in terms of how, like, what's the most logical way to make sure your needs are met and you're satisfied, and you know what I'm saying, your desires are fulfilled. And then also, how will that impact someone? So that same person, like, let's take that same example of that person who, like, they want to indulge in good food and things like that. And they need money to do this. So like, that person could also go rob a bank or something, right? But it's like the standards of society say that you should not do that. And so, because that's deeply ingrained in you, it's unlikely that you will do that. And that's kind of how it works. Now, the balance kind of comes in here with this earthly experience, because the superego, I mean, it's about who we should be, or trying to be our best self. But that's something that is very individual and unique and subjective, because it's like, society can tell you you should do or be plenty of things that you are not or do not want to be. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, society could tell you, okay, you need to graduate college on time and be married to another equally successful person by 30 and have 2.5 kids and a dog by the time you're 30, right? So it's like, you, first of all, it's may or may not be realistic for that to happen, because that's really just not how life works. Like, you weren't born to fulfill other people's expectations, for one. For two, you may not want, like, your career, you may not want to finish college, or that may not be necessary for you. You may not choose to get married, or if you do, maybe you don't want to have kids, or you don't see that self as a part of your life. Or maybe you want to, I don't know, maybe you want to go be a missionary in Calcutta, and or be a nun or something, and like not have a family, or you know what I'm saying, like, your personal desires and things like that, and what's going to satisfy you, and being able to do it in a way that you're not harming anyone, have more to do with like you being your best self than what other people necessarily expect of you. So I'm not saying like, oh, these expectations of society have no value. Like, some of them are important. Like, some standards of society are like, okay, you should not be a murderer, and that's a pretty good rule of thumb. You should not be a murderer. Okay. But if society is also telling you, okay, you need to be married by this age, and you need to, work this kind of job, and you need to dress like this and talk like this and XYZ, just because that's what they expect of you. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make you any better or worse of a person to do those things or to not do them. The key is to kind of find that balance in terms of, are you happy? You know what I'm saying? Because society is not going to like have regrets about how you lived your life when you're old and gray. You will have those regrets. So it's kind of like you have to do what is going to satisfy those inner desires, and recognize your way of going about it. And then also try to be cognizant of where you are focusing on, you know what I'm saying, what's truly going to be beneficial for you, as opposed to just fulfilling expectations and obligations. Because a lot of people end up miserable because they just lived their whole life and made their decisions based on what other people thought that they should do. Okay, so you know what I'm saying, this human existence, this earthly life that we live, it's really it's all about perspective and balance and things like that. So I feel like this is something we probably only experience. Oops, I'm clumsy. I knocked something down. Y'all probably heard that, but you'll be okay. This earthly experience that we have is very unique in terms of like all the different things we have to deal with, and especially like dealing with other people. So I guess that pretty much sums up some of the points and some of the perspectives that I feel like are useful in terms of interpreting how Earth can be used in astrology, um, as far as it being, basically a training ground, that's meant to just challenge us, train us to kind of regulate ourselves and our emotions and our energy, and then also to uh, have the experience of learning ourselves through other human experiences and the other people around us. So that is pretty much it, you guys. Let me know if you enjoyed this little series and whatnot, or if you have theories and stuff too, like, because I just find this like really fascinating. I don't know why it's not talked about in astrology, but you know what I'm saying. That's why I'm here. That's why we are here, to kind of talk about these things and get ideas out and ask questions and come up with answers, hopefully. So that's pretty much it. So I will see you guys the next time. Next series should be up shortly. I don't know which one I'm going to do next. It'll probably be metaphysics and social media and some of that stuff that pertains to our experiences online, and like kind of the spiritual and metaphysical ramifications that go along with these things that we kind of take so lightly and so lightheartedly and just do for fun and don't even really think about. Because it gets deep with that social media, so I'll probably do that one next. So make sure you stay tuned for that, and as always, thank you so much for watching, liking, following, subscribing, whatever it is you do, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.